Hi, I'm Maureen Paraventi, and I'm talking today with Gil LeVerne. And Gil is Director of Marketing of Essential Personal Protective Equipment, PPE, at Showa Group. He covers the Americas and Oceania. It's a big territory. And Showa, of course, is known for its hand protection that addresses a wide range of hazards. Today, though, we're going to be talking about Showa's ChemRest gloves. And first, though, let's get a little background on chemical hazards that workers might face. Now, Gil, employees where chemicals are manufactured, they're obviously at high risk for hand injuries due to chemical exposure. Other
Yeah,
industries, though, also at high risk. What are some of them, and how can workers unintentionally expose themselves to harmful solutions?
yeah. So thank you, Maureen, for the introduction and the dialogue. I really appreciate it. So employees that work for a chemical production plant are obviously at a higher rate of risk than those that just use chemicals within the plant or in the industries. And some of those industries are mining, painting, construction, anywhere where you are cleaning steel, metal, bricks, even anytime you're in an infrastructure situation or you're rebuilding, a lot of times chemicals are used. And the challenge that the employers have is to make sure that everything is up to date in the guidelines of how to handle chemicals, what gloves to use when you do handle them, and the other PPE that you have to have. And when people do get hurt, Maureen, it's usually because of a mishap or a misunderstanding, or not knowing the 360 view of what your application is to handle it correctly. So, for example, one of the things that we really focus on is the amount of time until permeation. So we have blocks of time that you can use certain products with certain chemicals, but they sometimes are very micro. So you might have very little time to be able to be exposed to a chemical versus more heavy duty gloves where they can handle a lighter chemical, if you will, or a less toxic chemical for a longer period of time. And that one little misunderstanding of not knowing how long your glove will last in this exposure can cause injury or harm with just a simple misunderstanding.
Wow, I didn't realize that time would play such a role in the protective qualities of the hand protection. Um,
Yeah, it's interesting. Go ahead.
well, I was just going to ask you to explain a little bit more what chemical permeation is.
Yeah, so permeation is the process where a chemical by diffusion actually goes through microporous um, parts of a glove. So the permeation is actually, like I said, the chemical diffuses over time and it moves through the actual film of the glove and actually to the hand eventually, if it's not the right glove. And permeation, you can't see. So it's some of it is you're being exposed to materials you can't see. Some of it you can feel, some of it you can't. But again, going back to the time of exposure, that's critical in knowing the time of exposure because that's how we determine the duration and the permeation rate. So we do the test. We know what gloves perform with which chemicals and which will be impacted by permeation the quickest. And the other thing, Maureen, is the application is really important because it's just like anything else. If you're applying more focus on one area and you're using it maybe even more than you thought you were going to be handling or using it because of the application, then the duration changes. So knowing the application is huge because some applications are very simple. You barely touch something and move it, while some of them are more intensive and you're actually with the chemical longer. So that was a long answer to permeation, but it's a big time issue in hand protection because again, it's diffusing the chemical and going through the pores of the film.
It's much more complicated than I realized.
Yeah, it is.
And
We
I,
try to take it out of it. Yeah.
pardon me?
So we try to take the complicated out of it by the end of this chat. Hopefully we'll see that, but
And I am going to assume that Showa provides the guidance on all of that, on exactly what chemical hazard, what application, what length of time it's safe.
Yes, ma'am. So we have live support in the U.S. Eastern Standard Time from 8 to 5, where our actual chemists are on the phone with customers or employers, or workers for the employers rather, explaining to them based on your hazard, your application, this is what we recommend. The other resource we have is an online resource called ChemRest.com, where you can go in and take a journey through our really easy to use chemical database, where you search by application, by chemical, and so on. So that we have two places other than our professional territory managers, who obviously are ChemRest experts. Those are the other two sources you can go to.
I was looking through the ChemRest.com website prior to talking with you. There's a lot of great information there.
Yeah. We put a lot of time and effort into that. And we've actually had ChemRest.com since '98, back when the floppy disk was the way to trade information. And we've had several versions of ChemRest.com where we've tried to enhance it. And this last version that we have that we're really happy with was actually a collaborative effort with our Americas chemists, our Japanese chemists, and the collaboration together pulled into this ChemRest.com and the kind of user-friendly environment it is. I mean, they always say you can know nothing, or you can be an expert and still learn. It doesn't matter. So it's very helpful.
Let's talk about some of the complications that workers might suffer when it comes to chemical burns. What are some of the complications? What are the long-term effects for both the employees and the employers?
Chemical burns are they're not only hurtful to you physically, they can be psychologically impactful as well. If you think about how important your skin is to you, no matter what part it is, we'll talk about hands, and you experience a chemical burn that could scar, that could easily, if handled incorrectly, you could touch your eye with the chemical burn. It could go to your eye or another real sensitive part of your body. And there's a psychological effect that it causes emotional issues and trauma, PTSD. I mean, people appreciate their hands, and like most things, we take a lot of things for granted. So when you kind of run into the chemical burn and that type of toxic chemical, and you know that if you don't wear your gloves right, your eyewear right, your PPE right, a part of your body could be harmed for life and scarred for life. And so, there's other things that chemicals can do as far as burns, and if someone was to ingest it, it can cause severe gastrointestinal issues. And for employers, of course, it's traumatic because it's an on-the-job injury. And if they didn't have their information in line, like I mentioned earlier, about just misunderstanding how to use it causes an injury. So if training protocols aren't in line, the right hand protection or PPE, whatever head to toe it is, then the employer can be out significantly as well. Not only with a good employee, but with workman's comp, long-term effects. There's a lot of cost that goes associated with that, and a ripple effect. So chemical burns can cause a lot of problems from different views.
Let me add OSHA violations to your list too.
Yes, perfect. Yes, ma'am. OSHA violations is a huge one.
Well, let's steer our way towards something a little bit more positive. What are the three service pillars of Showa's ChemRest platform?
It's to educate, to evaluate, and to equip. And what we're trying to do, our focus here is to, number one, educate, rule out misunderstandings, work with safety directors in large corporations, small corporations, however it may be. Wherever these chemicals exist and they're involved in applications, we want to educate first whoever's wearing that glove. These are the things that you need to go through, the steps you need to go through to make sure it's the right product. Then we want to make sure we've tested it, obviously, as well. So the educate is to bring people up to speed on what chemicals can do, what ChemRest.com can do for them, or are technical. And then we evaluate the application and the entire work area. And by using our expertise, we recommend the product, and that's when it comes into the equipping of the product. So we take them through 3 stages. and it kind of covers our bases. So by the time that we're recommending a glove, we should have checked a lot of boxes to get us there that assure us that that's the right product. Because frankly, we have a liability issue here as well, as Showa does with our products. So our formal recommendations are very important to not only our customers, but the wearers, everybody that wears the product as well.
Good point. Okay, let's drill down just a little bit. What type of education does Showa provide for employees on chemical resistance and permeation? You've hit on it a little bit. I'd love to hear more.
Well, we go to market several different ways. So the education could be as simple as a phone call to our technical services, where they identify it, the application, and they make the recommendation. You can also self-educate a bit on ChemRest.com, because you can explore and see what we recommend by chemical, by product, etc. But Maureen, we are brimming with professionals in our sales field that know everything about chemicals. So a lot of times our territory managers will do presentations on video call. They may promote the ChemRest triad of solutions here, this platform that we're discussing. And then video. We have video that's already canned and ready to go on ChemRest, with a lot of information on how to use it, how to get the most out of it, and things to watch out for.
And I'm curious, has Showa conducted any sort of after education assessments to see if their training and education programs do help to mitigate a company's injury statistics?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked this question, because it's a very important part of what we do, and we think it differentiates ourselves from others. But we have an evaluation or assessment program called Sentinel, and we make recommendations, and we make formal recommendations that are documented, that go by the application, that are signed off by everyone at the company that we're helping, what the recommendations are, and we follow up every month, unless unfortunately there's a case that we need to address, that somebody got hurt or there's an application issue. But we follow up every month, because these are normally dynamic work environments that are changing, and sometimes we have to change our recommendations. Maybe they've changed their work processes that immediately dates what we've already recommended. So we measure this post recommendation to make sure, number one, the presentation was enough. People got enough of the education, they're clear on how to use the product. And then also that it's part of what we do to retain our business and keep our customers happy. They care about people that come in and will spend the time to evaluate an entire work application and make a formal recommendation to save money. It can, a lot of times you can combine 2 or 3 gloves into one. So you can be way more efficient at one company or one location. So the evaluation after the fact is big. It's very important to us.
And what is Showa's process for determining a company's best choice for chem-resistant gloves?
So the process is basically to identify, and it goes back to the 3 services really, it's the educate, evaluation, and equip. The process we would do, depending on the customer, Maureen, because some of these are different customers, are approached different ways. Now with COVID restrictions still in some places, video call is the way to go. But our process is we go in, we take an account for all of the applications within the one location that we're evaluating. We look at ways we look at areas where they may be having injuries, because sometimes, Maureen, we are able to come in because of injuries from other products. So we come in after there is something that's happened. Maybe they just were wearing the wrong glove in the wrong application, whatever it may be. We quickly come in and try to give them solutions on which glove should be in which department. So for example, we have a oil resistant glove that's very famous, 377. It's a dual nitrile palm glove. Well, let's say that somebody working in a hydraulic assembly got hurt using a leather glove. We come in, we recommend the 377 because that's what it's designed for, is that type of application where there's a little oil and you're having to deal with a lot of parts. And we cut down on the injuries. The gloves may be used 2 or 3 days in a row. And then the company starts to save money. And on top of that, they're safe. So if it's very important, that last part is probably the most important part of the whole mission. So we never want to leave a situation unsafe. So we make formal recommendations. And the last thing I'll say about that is once we make those recommendations, we put them up on glove boards, is what we call them. And if you can imagine the inside of a manufacturing facility and it's got 5 different applications, and they can be anywhere from general assembly parts to hydraulic assembly, whatever it may be, we put the glove, the application, the time to wear, and everything on a huge poster that goes in the factory. So, you know, if I'm working in hydraulic assembly, I walk up and I need the Showa 377. Done.
Instant visual identification of what they should be wearing.
Exactly. It's not hearsay. It's not a safety meeting. It's not, you know, you're able to just see it and move on.
And let's face it, everybody wants to save time.
Yeah, they do. And not everybody cares about gloves, at least the way I do. So it's just another glove to them a lot of times. But I will say this, Maureen, I've been in a facility where we have greatly improved the efficiency of the work and saved money. And I've seen the smile on employees where they were using some kind of inferior or wrongly suggested product, which was affecting how productive they could be. And then we gave them an alternative, and it increases their production, which actually impacts their pay. So there's a lot of upside into letting us in to help. It's kind of a big ripple effect, I think.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Now, as we've discussed a little bit, Showa protects hands all over the world. Can you briefly explain Showa's global labeling system and its various benefits?
Sure. So we rolled out the EN 374, which is the type A, type B, type C regulation and suggested markings for mainly the globe. The U.S. still is dealing with ANSI and ASTM as regulatory bodies, but the rest of the world, literally Canada, Mexico, they're using the EN 374. So since they outnumber us, the rest of the world versus the U.S., we rolled with the EN 374 as well, but we educate the user on what the ANSI equivalent is to that, so they know how the scores match up. And we not only did that, we put the EN 374 score on the cuff of the glove. So you know when you get our glove, it's going to have an A, B, C, and whichever one is highlighted, that's the type of product, that's the type of protection you're getting. And type C is not necessarily inferior to type A. So there is some of the stuff that you would just naturally think is intuitive, A, B, C. C is going to probably be the lower, not necessarily because it deals with time of immersion, intermittent contact. It goes back to the application that we discussed, you know. So we have all of this consistent ChemRest branding on the cuff of our glove, on our packaging, on the poly bags, on ChemRest.com, and on ShowaGroup.com. So you can take the journey with us on this, the way we've done the type A, B, and C. And it's really effective once it hits the end user. They're guaranteed they're in the right place.
The information is so accessible in so many different areas, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, Gil, selecting the right chemical resistant glove for the job, even with all that information, or maybe because of all that information, is a little complicated. What is the chemical resistant glove directory at ChemRest.com? How does it help users navigate the myriad issues that they might face when they're choosing hand protection?
Yeah, so our mission, again, for the 3 services is to educate, evaluate, and equip. And I promise not to get those out of order, because it's really important that they're in order. And we do the education and the evaluation and the equipping in person, face-to-face, is the most impactful way we can do it. There's just some things that a video call is not going to serve. So it's not always, even though it's not an option, it's not always an option to be face-to-face. So the other things that we try to provide are the videos, the online how-tos with ChemRest.com, where you can choose by, the product, the chemical, the cast number, the application. Once you punch these things into the ChemRest.com, basically the algorithm, it will give you the recommendations with the time of duration of exposure, the polymer you need to use. We may not say the exact glove, but we'll recommend a polymer like nitrile, neoprene, butyl, Viton, something like that. Then they can go to our showagroup.com by just clicking through and land on that page of that product. So that part of it is still effective virtually, but our face-to-face impact is much greater. We've really felt that over the pandemic. We're really effective face-to-face. I think digital can only solve so many of life's circumstances, and some of these we just really need to be there.
And it sounds like you're willing to go there.
Yeah, we are for sure.
Now, we have covered a lot of ground today about Showa and about chemical resistant gloves. I want to say ChemRest or chemical resistant. And is there anything that we've missed that you want to add?
I don't think so. I think the main thing that I would love to have, I guess, communicated here is that chemicals are, even to me, and I've been in this business a long time, can be a little bit intimidating to even talk about, because oftentimes there are complicated names to chemicals. And to that end, you really need a glove expert to help you. If you're not, if you're not yourself, you need one to walk beside you and make sure that safety director, you want him to feel good about every aspect of his operation. And I think that what we can do is take a very complex, potentially very hazardous application and find the right product and the solution in a short amount of time. So we've kind of like taken a lot of the time out of the journey to find that one product by offering up the 3 pillars of, it's educating, evaluating, and equipping.
And the place to start that journey is www.chemrest.com.
Correct.
And we've been talking.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you get there, you just register and it's free and you get access to it. You can also find out about degradation, something we didn't talk about. You can find out about penetration. That's on there as well. Some of these terms that get a little confused. And a Showa professional can also walk you straight through that site too, if there's any areas that you feel uncomfortable with.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
Gil LeVerne, full of information today. Gil is Director of Marketing of Essential Personal Protective Equipment, PPE, at Showa Group. Gil, thanks so much for talking with me today.
Thank you, Maureen, very much. I appreciate it.